And we are live. Tia Oldalieva, the Elven Spiritual Path, coming at you today, talking about the Dragon Legacy with Nicholas deVere and, in some fashion, Tracy Twyman, who was helping him at the time, as well as the Realm of the Ring Lords with Laurence Gardner, and how all of this would or would not relate with Tolkien's Legendarium. And so our panel here today is Dave Woosley, our resident Legendarium, lore master. How you doing, Dave?
Fine.
Awesome. Dakyndre, who is our non-Legendarium lore master in our group, but also, like lots of different knowledge that Dakyndre has and brings to the table, and it's fantastic. Say howdy.
Hello.
Okay, and we have a real treat for you. Lomelindo is coming because he also has he's one of our most active patrons in the teacher area and is also very knowledgeable in this area. And he has decided to join our panel today. So welcome, Lomelindo.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so okay, let's get this party started. First, we need to welcome everybody who's here. So let me scroll back here. We have Vere Tariel, King Gibson, Mai Govanen, she says. The one that is Dorian's Lover 119, that's Christy. It's our latest patron at the teacher level, along with Erulastiel, but I don't think that she's here tonight. Silver Anderson. Welcome, Christy. We have Nimue Avalon. How you doing? How you doing, girl? And I believe we have Merlin is here. Fantastic to see you. Yeah, because we haven't caught you live in the last couple of times, so this is fabulous. Christy says, oh man, I just put 2 and 2 together. Is this book by the same dude who wrote Bloodline of the Holy Grail? And I said, meaning as Tia Oldalieva, if you mean Holy Blood, Holy Grail from the 80s, no, but it's related. That's what I said. And
it's actually one of Laurence Gardner's books called Bloodline of the Holy Grail, where he goes
it is.
Oh, okay.
Book. This is not the only one.
I thought that it was a different book, so sorry about that. Yes,
no,
I guess
Bloodline of the Holy Grail is one
by the same guy then. Okay, so thank you for correcting me. I was thinking about the 1980s one. And Nimue says, if you mean Bloodline of the Holy Grail, the hidden lineage of Jesus, yes, it is the same guy. Okay, so that's perfect. Okay, so now we're all caught up. Okay, so we're going to get the party started here. I don't see anybody else in the chat. So, Dave, do you want to talk about the Legendarium itself and how Tia Oldalieva came about with the Legendarium and how I guess that it's not just central, but pretty much primary and core with Oldalieva.
It's okay. For me, before I met Lisa or before Tia Oldalieva was founded, it was my personal mythology. Basically, I mean, Tolkien wrote it, but I related to it in the same way that I don't know, like a young Jewish boy growing up in the Jewish culture would learn the Torah and the Talmud and stuff like that. That's essentially what happened to me with Tolkien's Legendarium. So all the stuff that the other people are talking about, the various books and all that, I was not aware of those at all until, I was 40 years old and Lisa and I formed TE, and only at that point, only after we started contacting internet people who we hope shared the interest in Tolkien's Legendarium. So that's where I come in. It was just my personal spirituality.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't just your your personal spirituality for a year or two. I mean, it was
it goes back to the time I was
found us.
Well, the time I was eight years old, when my mom first read The Hobbit to me, and then it just grew upon that. And when I was 12, The Silmarillion was published, and that gave me quite a mythological body of knowledge to work with.
So. Sure. I mean, I just wanted to explain to people, like, because they may not know how old we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you know, like, meaning that it's like decades here, decades of, oh, Pink Pearl Fairy, hi, how are you doing? Glad you could join the conversation. So, Dave is introducing how he came into the Tia Eldelieva, I guess, you know, mode, which really was his personal spirituality before he found us. I mean, it's really
now,
how it worked.
My mom was Christian of the Lutheran variant of Christianity, the Lutheran denomination or whatever they call it. I wasn't. The Legendarium was my personal spirituality. So unlike neo-pagan people, I didn't have a problem with Christianity, but it wasn't mine. That was mom's religion. I didn't have much to do with it. You know, so
Yeah.
if you're not directly interacting in something, it doesn't really bother you. You know, so
well, and I would say that actually there are people who align with pagan paths that are not adversarial to Christian pathways. But it is less common, I think, in America versus Europe, where in Europe I noticed that it can be combined together like pretty easily, where in America it seems like it's very delineated, like you are a this or you are a that, and you know, like we don't want to hear it if you like resonate with both. And I do think that's changing now because we've had a lot of, you know, like there's just a lot of people exploring their personal paths now, and we have this really cool thing called the internet, so we can explore a lot of different things and find people that, you know, allow us to explore. And I think that that is a good thing, because Dave and I would have never found each other, and I would have never found Dakyndre, and Lomelindo would have never found us. I mean, it's, you know, like what it is. So the less great side about the internet is the misinformation. And what we're hoping to do with the internet is bring about at least information that you can use in its accuracy, and then create your own, you know, like relationship with it and with the path. But we're trying to set some things straight that need to be set straight, and then you can then do with your path what you want to do. And so that's why we're here, and that's why we're making this video. And Dave, did you want to like finish off with anything with the Legendarium and how anything happens, or are you done? Like, because I don't
I'm not done. I want to go through how these books do or and do not relate to the Legendarium as a body of, well, legends. So I'm gonna try to paste this into the regular people's chat. This experiment will either work or it won't as far as pasting it in. And if it doesn't, then Lisa, I'll, you know, like we discussed, I'll have to post it to you and you'll have to repost. So anyway,
that's fine.
Here it goes. Okay. Let's see here. Unfortunately, it's chopping up my my line endings.
Okay, go ahead and put it in the private area.
Oh, okay.
And,
yeah, I'm gonna close
I will post it into the comments in the live chat.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
And then that way folks can, you know, dig it up.
Right.
Now, by the way, like most of you that are on the conference right now, you guys are patrons. So you have access to the Tia Eldelieva versions of these books electronically in our membership. Okay. But if you are not, like, you know, just write to elvenspirituality@gmail.com, and that reaches me. And we'll see what we can do to get a copy for you if you are really interested. Okay. So I'm going to put for electronic I guess books. How's that? Okay.
Still a little bit of chopping up the line endings, but less so. If I would have posted it in the regular people's chat, it would have splattered all over the place.
Okay. Okay. So let me go over here to private chat. Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay. So let me paste the dragon bloodline, and we're going to put this into the live chat. Okay, first. Okay. So guys, stay tuned to your live chat window. And this comes from Dave. So I'm going to put at the top from Dave. Oh, wait, it typed over the top of it. What? Okay, hang on a second. I got to try this again because it did not work properly. Okay. And I think what it is with live chat, it doesn't tell you in StreamYard, which that's the app that we're using to do the stream for you guys here. But YouTube only lets you type so many characters, and that might be too long to fit in one comment on live stream. But I will go back and post it in the comments later.
Okay.
Just so that, you know, people know what's going on with that. So let me try again, and I'm going to, what I'll do is I'll do it in a couple of pieces.
I can actually resubmit them in smaller chunks if you want.
No, that's fine. I'll do it myself. I just don't want it to be where it's too mixed up for them to follow. Okay. Paste. Okay, I think that this will work. Oh, no, it didn't, but it's fine. It looks like, oh, it broke the link. Oh, shit. Okay.
YouTube has a tendency to...
yeah, it does that. So, but what we can do, though, is that the way that it broke, it might still work. Do the links, okay, for you guys that are in the live chat, do the links still work? And if one of them doesn't, I'll retype it. Okay, and then I'll get the other part that he was doing here. So private chat. Okay.
Now, these things that I posted, these are the references to dragons or serpentine forms within the Legendarium. Some of them are good or neutral. That's why I put the personality alignment thing in there, so people would know what that meant. Because although a lot of people are in the Dungeons and Dragons thing, I only recently heard of it recently. So
I see.
But that's where that alignment system comes from. Things go all the way from what is it called, lawful good to something.
Oh, lawful and then chaotic, neutral, etc. Yeah. Yeah. Oh wait, HTTP. Okay, I'm typing one of the links over again because it looks like it got split and it doesn't work. So
Nimue says that the link for the glowworms works.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
I can put in the other links. I can resubmit
I am doing that myself right now.
Okay.
You guys, what I want you guys to do is go ahead and talk.
Okay.
And I will get.
Now these are now, like I said, I didn't come out of I wasn't interested in even in things like the Arthurian mythos, so I wasn't interested in Grail quests and things of that nature, which may or may not even relate to this, but the word Grail is mentioned, so I have no idea how that would appeal to a person who was interested in such things, but it didn't appeal to me. So what I'm giving you is these concepts that appear in the Legendarium. And these has everything to do with dragons and serpentine forms. Now, what may be of a more there is an overlap of concepts, according to what Lomelindo has told me, where in the Legendarium there's a thing called the line of Luthien, and that is this seems to be similar in some respects to what's referred to as the dragon bloodline. And that's the next thing. It's not going to be as many links here, so hopefully it won't screw up. There's even a little diagram that I actually got out of Marcus's paper, and then Marcus's thesis. There's a link to that too. Hopefully that won't break, but I can't guarantee anything.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Oh, did you just drop that into the chat right now?
Yeah,
okay,
I
did. I'm still getting part of the other one on here.
Okay, which one?
So that's fine. And it looks like Lomelindo has a comment that he wanted to make in the private chat.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yes, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, the barrel down blades did have serpentine forms. You're right. I had,
and those were spell forged too. So
right.
So there's that aspect of magic with smithying and stuff going on.
Right. I was thinking of actual creatures, so no wonder I didn't. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab the other link that you provided for everyone, and that is the overlaps. So I think that this will fit in one comment in YouTube.
And what the what the line of Luthien is within the Legendarium is shown in that little ping, which hopefully comes out. I hosted it on Imageure. I tested it before broadcast. It should work. If it doesn't, I'll re-up it.
Okay.
It's an important idea.
Okay. It looks like when I type them in the comments, like from the StreamYard point of view, it fits. Mm-hmm. What I don't know is if they're linking. So if one of the viewers wants to pop in and say if all of the links work, that would be great. So I think I fixed the two that didn't work up above. And then I posted two more things that Dave provided in the back end comments that he can't post directly, and I posted them for him. So I just cut and paste basically. And I just want to make sure that it views and you guys can see it. We're going to try to put all of this material also into the comments down below so that other people can reference it if they cannot, for whatever reason, see the live chat on the replay. Okay. So Dave, are you still in your presentation part?
Yeah.
Okay, I will wait, but I posted everything in the comments now.
Okay, now these are the line of Luthien has some conceptual overlap, as far as I can tell, with what people refer to as the dragon bloodline. Now this is it. These things, and maybe a few that I didn't think of because I was thinking of my mind works in somewhat different ways. If Lomelindo can come up with stuff that I forgot, that's great. But this is what I'm saying is that there's not much aside from the things that I posted. Let me recast that.
Okay, sure.
Coming from inside the Legendarium, you're dealing with stuff that's inside the Legendarium. What seems to have happened with these books, and really a lot of other books that are written about Tolkien, they come from a overculture perspective. So they're trying. Well, for example, all the many books that try to find Tolkien's true sources. They'll mention the Elder Eddas or whatever, and they'll think that because they've mentioned it that they found it, but that isn't actually what happens. What happens is a person can be inspired by something, but it doesn't mean it's a source. And that's a concept that apparently most people just can't. Their mind boggles or something, or they just ignore it or something. Whatever. I'm not a psychologist, or a sociologist, but because Dave Woosley is mainly interested in Dave Woosley. See, I'm on the autism spectrum, so it goes with the territory,
Well, and for people who are curious about hey, this might be a possible source list, I am now dropping in the comments the sacredtexts.com Tolkien quote list of possible sources, that are public domain, so that some of you guys might know some of those.
I remember
And
looking
some
at
of those may be legit, where Tolkien read them, and maybe even got, some download or something from that. But anyway, I just thought I would that's an example list.
I guess the best way to describe it is, say I was a musician, which unfortunately I'm not. I would like to have that skill, but
we can pretend, right?
But I just don't. But say I was, and when I was a little kid, I listened to Mozart, let's say.
Okay.
But my preferred style is heavy metal. So, I may be inspired by Mozart, but it's not a source directly. You see, if I came up with a song, it would be heavy metal Mozart influenced. See?
Wow. So how like Black Sabbath would be like more of a source for you than Mozart.
Yeah. Well, actually, I always went into progressive metal and actually some early punk stuff.
I was listening to Dream Theater the other day because they're touring here in San Diego, and I hadn't seen them since 1992, and actually listened to their album again, and the first time in 30 years that I've listened to it, and I totally forgot how good it is.
Another great band that is along the lines of like symphonic metal that is influenced by classical, but not classical itself. But that would be Blind Guardian. They actually did a
for sure,
Nightfall in Middle Earth concept album of the Silmarillion. So
yes,
I've seen people mention that. I haven't listened to it yet, but I not because I didn't want to, but only because other stuff's been going on. But if you recommend it, I'll
they've got like little clips of like Melkor saying his lines and stuff, like to Húrin when Húrin is like,
cool.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have another link on the TolkienMusic.com, and it's hyphenated. There is lots and lots of bands which would, have Tolkien as part of their reference. And by the way, Christy agrees with you. Lomelindo says, "Love me some Blind Guardian." Okay.
Yeah, good.
One of my favorite bands, she says.
Now, this is pretty much the end of my Legendarium presentation. Do you want me to drop the truth bomb about the deVere manuscript, or do one of you guys want to do it?
Actually,
I can do it.
I think okay, Dave, let's hold that till the end, because you may get new info from the guys presenting before you drop your bomb.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
There's also
then people will be very curious and maybe want to hear what you think.
Right. Okay.
Later. Yeah. So Dakyndre, did you want to take the stage next?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
So to drop one of the truth bombs that is inevitably in my presentation has to be said before I start is I have owned both the Dragon Legacy book and the deVere book. They're actually on my desk right next to me. I have owned these exact books for probably 20 some years. You're
talking about the Realm of the Ring Lords also.
Realm of the Ring Lords and the Dragon Legacy.
Okay.
I discovered those books in late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere right around there.
Right. When they came out. Yeah.
Pretty much. And picked them up and thought at first when I got them that they were, oh my gosh, these are super accurate. These are, great sources of information on Elven culture that you don't find anywhere else, because, mind you, Google and all of that didn't exist much at that time. So finding anything on the internet was rare. So finding these books, I thought, oh, these guys have done a ton of research and they're super knowledgeable. Read the books for a few years, actually touted them as amazing sources of information. The deeper I dug into this researching these books, the more and more I discovered that the actual truth bomb is they are both terrible books. They have nuggets of very useful information that is accurate and nowadays could be found on Google, even though they couldn't back then. The best thing they serve as at the moment are, for those who've never encountered the topic of, elven bloodlines, magical bloodlines, they serve as a very, very rough gateway. So I want to drop that before I start my actual stuff, because there's going to be some people that are going to be, how dare he says, impugns their honor.
Words, yo.
Well, but there's so many people that really need, like they need the counterpoint. Like they have plenty of sources that are like, oh, this is the bomb. But, and I mean the bomb in a good way. Okay. But like they need the counterpoint in order to make up their own mind. So we're totally happy to host that counterpoint, and go ahead and continue, Dakyndre.
Hold on. Could I just say something?
Yes.
As for deVere's material, his daughter is now championing it on her Facebook page. So she is the one who is trying to sell.
Who's his daughter?
Her name is I forget her name off the top of my head, but I know Adam or Ruan knows her.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Abby
we'll find
deVere.
it. We'll find it.
I think it's Abby. That's her name.
Okay.
So yeah, so carry on.
Okay. So anyway, to start my section, I wrote a little bit on both books. So in deVere's book, he goes on to reveal that there is a elven bloodline / what they call the dragon bloodline, or the dragon kings, dragon lords, and that it's an elven bloodline that ties back to Jesus. That there were other bloodlines and other families, but they were all eradicated, and the only one true pure bloodline that exists from any magical family is descendant only from Jesus, which when you do a lot deeper research is completely inaccurate. There are many, many, many other magical bloodlines out there. Many other elven bloodlines. So his whole premise of his book, just to start with, that all these other families and bloodlines were eradicated, is kind of preposterous, especially when you get into other books like Elves, Rights, and Trolls, as I've talked about in other videos. That one says that just nowadays, just about anybody with Scandinavian, so Swedish, Danish, Norwegian, Icelandic, anyone with more or less, Scandinavian bloodline is almost always going to be able to trace, if they do their ancestry genealogy far enough back, will trace to someone that is of an elven bloodline. It's very, very common. And living out here in Hawaii, they have the stories of the Menehune, which were short little. They're viewed as either elves or dwarves. It's used interchangeably, but I've encountered a bunch of my Hawaiian friends whose family lines all trace to Menehune bloodlines, and they are incredibly magical beings. So this idea that only this one elven bloodline is, the first part is just wrong, but it does serve as a gateway. A lot of times, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just wrapping up a point, and sorry.
Okay. So, the one thing I do want to touch about that's accurate in a sense in these books as a broad scope topic is that elven bloodlines do exist as a physical reality. In a lot of magical communities, you will have people argue that no, you can't genetically be an elf. It doesn't exist. You have to be soul born. and that means that you are a human body with a elven soul, and that is the only way that you can be an elf.
No offense,
That
but
is-
how would you even define a metric for that? I mean, I'm just speaking as a scientist. How would you define a metric of having a human soul or an elven soul? I mean,
it has to be determined by DNA, but currently the science doesn't. It isn't like equipped for that currently.
And honestly, that goes into I'm going to throw this out. This is my own opinion at the moment. 98% of our DNA is what is considered junk DNA. When you look at it, it doesn't mean much. However, when they dealt with the Sherpa guides over in like the Tibet region, they discovered that most of the Sherpas have a genetic, and they didn't know why, but they had a genetic disposition to be able to handle the climates higher than most average people. They didn't get the altitude sickness. They could breathe easier. They ended up discovering within the last 5 years that there was a tribe of people in that time who were known as the Denisobans. And when they found Denisoban DNA, they matched it against the Tibetan population, the Sherpa population, and they found that most of the Sherpa guides who had a higher level of this Denisoban genetics than others, which made for them being better equipped in that area. But until 5 years ago, it was junk DNA that meant nothing until they had a source.
Junk DNA is kind of the older
DNA, because literally we can say that our DNA is nearly identical to a bird or something. I mean, entirely different from us. So we know that it's not junk.
It doesn't actually
mean anything to me.
Well, what it means is it's non-encoding at the moment. It's there for basically backup purposes. There's redundancy built in.
I should have explained that. Junk doesn't mean garbage. It's just it's a scientific term. It
shouldn't be.
We don't know yet
because it clearly means that they don't know what it's for.
Exactly.
Okay? That's what it means.
Which is what Lomelindo just said. It just means we don't know. So the ability to be genetically elven, as is hinted or as displayed in both of these books, absolutely exists in a physical reality that much of the magical community today pretends doesn't exist. They want to believe that it's soul only and that's it, because that can't be disproven. That's the biggest problem. Is I could say I have the soul of a pink flamingo. Prove me wrong. That's the problem.
The thing is that that because that would require a non-scientific 3D kind of method, right, to prove that. It literally wouldn't be of the earth, and so therefore they can,
claim whatever they want,
or they maybe they're not. But one day, I do think that logically science will back up that there is DNA markers.
Logically, the concept with that sort of thing is simply called non-falsifiability. It's like trying to prove or disprove the existence of God. It logically it can't be done. There's no way to do it. The problem is that people, it's a wider, pervasive cultural problem, from my point of view, in that people attempt to use science because it has more street cred, I think, to basically prove or disprove everything. But there are areas where it's simply non-applicable because it's a specific knowledge acquisition system for phenomena that are quantifiable. If it's not quantifiable, it's outside the realm of science. So,
So
well,
I just wanted to touch on
Merlin
that.
brings up remote viewing, and I even think remote viewing is different than that. But maybe you guys, I'm not sure if you guys know what remote viewing is.
Yes,
I'm very familiar with that.
Very with it. As are many other things. If you look into On remote viewing, sorry to digress to a different topic for just a second. Remote viewing is the ability to see places and things in different locations. It's not a genetic.
Times too.
In different times, it's something that can be learned, and it's something that many governments, for example, if you look into the 1970s, the CIA in the US was using remote viewing programs to try to spy on Russia until the general public freaked out. And there were like massive protests about privacy invasion. But Russia has played around with remote viewing. China has played around with remote viewing. That's not a genetic ability so much as it is just
it's
one
learned,
you can
and
learn
also
to do.
it's 3D. You don't even need to be psychic in order to learn it. And,
right.
And a psychic person may not practice remote viewing. It's totally two different things.
What were you going to say, Lomelindo?
Oh, that slipped from my mind.
So sorry.
Oh,
I didn't
I
hear
see
you.
what,
Otherwise, I would have let you.
What? Oh yes, the whole remote viewing thing was like solely a CIA/DOD project, multiple projects actually. I had read a lot of the declassified documents and followed the procedures and all of that, and was able to get results from it. But as a bloodline, there is the concept of genetic memory that is passed down from generation to generation, that not only includes like physical characteristics, but also behavioral as well. So
absolutely.
Epigenetics is the emerging field around this, and this is where being of a certain bloodline, whether it be Elven, doesn't automatically make you capable of doing remote viewing or magic or whatever.
Correct.
But my view, and what I've been taught by others, is that sorry, I lost my train of thought again.
Okay. Did you want us to come back if you catch the thread?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Not a problem. Not
totally
a problem.
Fine.
So one thing that deVere mentions in his book that I did consider very accurate, Lomelindo can correct me if I'm not, but it does blend very much with the folklore videos that we've done. One of deVere's things is, if you were to see an elf today, like one walked up to your front door, knocked on the door, you would almost not be able to tell any difference between them and a basic human.
That's because there isn't.
Right. Folklore says the same thing, that when in the medieval folklores and things like that, when they encountered the elves, when they encountered fairies, it wasn't these tiny little beings with wings or these pointed-eared beings. They were almost imperceptible to you or I, with slight differences. There were minute things that if you were paying attention, you'd be like, wait a minute. So that part, he is accurate. You wouldn't notice.
But the fact remains is that this is not a separate species. This is humans. And that's one of the biggest. Actually, I would like to actually just step back and just say where my information comes from. Well, as the books were released back in the 2000s, it made its way into one of the Elven forums that Lisa and I think Dave was in. I think it was like Indigo Crystals or something like that.
Oh yeah.
I remember that one.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's where I first encountered that, and then into that forum comes someone claiming that they know, like, that this stuff is not right, that it needs to, that there needs to be clarification around what the dragon bloodline is and is not. And I had the opportunity to interview about 20 people over the years about various topics, about the origins of the bloodline and all of that. And you could see like that deVere like heard of it somewhere and just took it and ran with it and added all his own stuff into it.
Right.
With the pseudo Kabbalistic associations as well. So these people may also have deceived me. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying this is the absolute truth. It is a truth. It is a version of the story, right?
Right.
So I'm not like trying to prove or disprove anything except through, the obvious scholarship where someone claims that there's a linguistic connection when there isn't one.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So,
thank you for that.
So another thing that deVere touches on his books, and I know Lomelindo will have stuff to say with this one as well, is he goes into this whole idea, deVere does, that there was this Elven holocaust, and it was 1,000-year period in which the Catholic Church sought to persecute and eradicate only the Elven families. And, this was always the way it was, and, for 1,000 years. And it's like, okay, there's a slight problem with that. While I definitely admit that he also tries to say that the Spanish Inquisitions were part of that whole period. But the problem with that is that the Catholic Church has a notorious history of going after anyone that threatened their power. So they wouldn't have went just after the elves. They would have went after anything: elves, druids, witches, normal people who wrote a book that said the church shouldn't have this much authority would have been equally as heretical to them as someone of a magical bloodline. So I found his idea on an Elven holocaust incredibly limiting in the scope of history, where they would spend that much time on just one thing. They would have went after everyone. Go ahead.
Sorry here. I just wanted to really quick respond to Pink Pearl Fairy's thing here about the pointed ears and elves. No, that's it's basically a very modern, at least with regard to the Legendarium. It's a very modern conflation with. I think there was a direct conflation with Vulcans myself, and so it just got run. And then there's the whole. A lot of animals have pointed ears, but therianthropy, of which I am one, it's a completely different concept with a different evolution as far as social evolution on the internet. So, within a lot of people think within Tolkien's mythos that the elves have pointed ears, and now that idea has become pervasive, but it's an erroneous assumption. Otherwise, the description wouldn't have spoken about light in the eyes. They would have spoken about points on the ears.
Did you have? Oh,
anyway, go on.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Lomelindo?
Yes, thank you. With regards to the Albigensian Crusade, as it was called, there was a bit of a mistranslation here. So Albi does not refer to elves, although it does share the root for the word white, which is also the case in Old English. So these were people. Gens is people of the town of Albi, which was named after a Roman senator, I believe, by the name of Albius. So these people were associated with that town. So these Cathars, as they were called, were associated with that, and only them. That had nothing to do with bloodlines. It had everything to do with the divinity or non-divinity of Jesus. So, yeah. So so there was no Elven crusade, and the fact that he's portraying the dragon bloodline in general, which is much larger in scope than just like the line of Luthien, say, it would also include, all of the other kingdoms in Middle Earth as well.
Mm-hmm.
As just comparing the two that way.
Right.
Dakyndre, before we go further, Pink Pearl Fairy was talking about the pointed ears. I know that Morgan Daimler had talked about on the folklore side what pointed ears and the origins were, and it have to do with that the Christians at the time were trying to demonize the
I remember reading
and
that.
It absolutely portrayed them with pointed ears.
Yeah. Absolutely. The idea that elves have pointed ears in folklore sources originates with the Catholic Church again, primarily at the time. But Christianity as a whole, their attempt to demonize, it was thought that demons had pointed ears. And so pointed ears were added to these beings so that they could, in essence, go, see, they have pointed ears, therefore they have evil connotations. They are of Satan, because Satan also has, in all of the pictures you ever see of him, he has pointed ears.
It's literally a demonization.
It was
of those beings. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for answering that for her.
Go ahead, Lomelindo.
With the pointy ear thing, that's never mentioned anywhere in Tolkien. I think there was one thing where I think the word for ear was similar to the word for leaf.
Yes,
and that's people were using that as proof.
Yeah, but it was very nebulous on what that actually meant.
And like I said,
I think what these pointed ears go back to is satyrs.
You're right.
Without fertility, right? So
yeah,
they got a lot of the iconography from that from Penn. So
and then like I said, in the folklore, they got it from the Christian Church, whose ability was, we're going to demonize it, therefore give it pointy ears. It's a demon. It was like one way to tell. It's almost Monty Python-y in a sense of, well, if it floats, it's a witch, pretty much, if it floats on water, it's a witch.
We'll move on from the pointed ear. I mean, I guess that should have been in the Elves and Fairies differences video that we did earlier, which I dropped in the live chat, and I'll put in the comments later for people to reference. But
okay,
so we'll get back on track with the books and what they are about. So thank you, Dakyndre.
So to continue, I'm going to finish up here on my section on deVere. Basically, with deVere, there's a lot of inaccuracies in his work. Like I said earlier, it does at least serve as or did at one time, as a very rough starting point to lead to a much deeper rabbit hole if you choose to go down that. To touch on Laurence Gardner, he wrote a bunch of books. Similarly sourced with deVere, most of his material is on proving that the concept of the Holy Grail wasn't a physical cup, but that it meant womb. Again, it was tying two words together that did not have the same connotation. But it was along that. But in one of his books, he wrote The Realm of the Ring Lords, and he touches on Tolkien's book. And his biggest thing was that he did say that Tolkien's work was a mytho-history, not a fiction, and that it annoyed him that many people thought of it as fiction, and that it was listed next to children's books when he thought it should have been elsewhere. The problem with Gardner is that he goes into mostly the same thing that deVere does in trying to tie the concept of Tolkien's work and a bunch of other magical work all back to the bloodline of Jesus, because I'm not sure where that desire to put those two together came from, instead of to admit or to focus on them being their own things. It may have just been an attempt to sell the books. So Gardner does the very, very same thing. And something I wanted to touch on is there's a reason I see this. Both authors kind of keep their information, as Lomelindo will probably agree, to about 4,000 to 6,000 years ago. They don't go any further back. And I think that where that originates from, and this is my take on it, is one, they're trying to focus on the bloodline of Jesus. So if they go back too far, then they have to figure out how any of those connected, which they don't have source material for. The second thing is I think that they kept it to where they could argue their conclusions, like I said, with source material. And my conclusion for that is, again, my own experience, but something I wanted to throw out is, besides being involved very heavily in the magical community, for many, many years now, I've been involved in like the Freemasons and stuff like that. I will get people all the damn time that come up to me and go, you know that Freemasonry goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, or, beyond back this to Atlantis. And yet every Mason you talk to is going to tell you it goes back to 1717 with the founding of the Grand Lodge of England. The reason for it is because anything past 1717, there is no damn evidence to support that it existed anything further back. There's scant references. So I think both authors focused their thing on the Jesus bloodline so that they could use documents to try to prove their source. And they didn't have to be, because if you tried to be like, well, there was an Elven bloodline in ancient Egypt, where's your source material? Well,
who cares really?
But the problem is when you're trying to sell a book, if you can't say where you got this information, then it's just going to be then it's not going to be as popular, because it's just going to be you made it up.
Also,
here's another viewpoint of the let's make everything a Jesus bloodline. Keep in mind that they were eradicating people for not being Christian. They were trying to wipe out, pre-Christian religions. And so if you created a way to be connected to the bloodline of Jesus, then maybe you got to be saved. So I think that there could be other reasons for this whole, like, we're connected to this thing so that they don't die, literally.
And so probably it is. There's many reasons. The last thing that I did want to touch on is that I think by not searching out more unconventional things and trying to tie it to just this one narrative, I think that ultimately my final conclusion with both books is that it diminishes all of the various magical bloodlines that are in existence. It diminishes them greatly and kind of cheats them of the very rich history that they do have. And that's basically the conclusion I reached.
Right.
And thank you, Dakyndre. That's very bold.
And I was, in contact with some of these families. So I got a bit of a different perspective. For example, you know, the dragon bloodline has nothing to do with the bloodline of Jesus, has nothing to do with Satan. As a lot of people actually refer to the dragon bloodline as reptilians, as Illuminati, as New World Order, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, and Satanism as well, and Freemasonry, you know, there's tons about that.
We're constantly taking over the world, and as I joke, we can't organize a pancake breakfast, let alone take over the world.
Yeah, exactly. It's completely ridiculous. But the thing is, the dragon bloodline isn't just a Middle Eastern bloodline. It was a bloodline that went back more than 10,000 or 12,000 years ago, as the stories say. You know, that's what they have passed down, because of the fact that the bloodline itself came from the Upper Paleolithic period, when there was no civilization. And of course, a lot of the members of these bloodlines started the civilizations. And this is where you get the legends about, you know, there's dragon kings in Egypt, and there's dragon kings over here and over there. And that is true because of the migration patterns in, you know, 10,000 BC. And also it coincides with the development of white skin as well among Scandinavians, which is telling, because to me that some branches of the bloodline, you know, acquired lighter skin.
That gene goes back about 30,000 years, doesn't it? At least that's one of my researches several years ago. So that's interesting. Of course, the whole advent of hominins keep getting pushed further and further back. But okay.
Yeah. So basically, what differentiates like a dragon versus a non-dragon, you know, regular Joe, old Joe, whatever, is the fact that in the dragon line there is greater potential for genetic memory, and this is where, you know, over thousands and thousands of years. I mean, this doesn't happen, you know, like this, and boom, we started a bloodline. There we are. No, this was more of a, you know, it was a nomadic kind of existence. So there's a lot of moving around. There's a lot of traveling. There's a lot of meeting of various peoples. You know, I was also told that they encountered native peoples as well, such as the Aborigines, North America as well. So it's a lot bigger than what deVere and Gardner have in mind. And it has, you know, the whole, and saying that we're claiming that we descend from Jesus is the worst heresy ever. And should the Catholic Church regain power, you know, via politicians, that will be illegal again, you know. So he just marked his family for, you know, for harm to come to them, really. But it's a much deeper thing, and the Elven were actually, you know, that's there's another name for them in Hebrew culture. It was called Nephilim. So you actually see like remains of the story in Genesis, where, you know, the angels came down and had sex with mortal women, and from them came the giants, the, you know, the race, the heroes of old, the men of renown.
The men of renown. I remember that.
Yeah. So the story that they tell, that in the dragon bloodline families, and there's a lot of people who descend from these families who have no awareness at all of this, largely because of Christianity. A lot of families had to take their whatever magical practices they had and go underground with it, and publicly profess Christianity, you know. So
I agreed.
Yeah. So the Elven were the first of the dragon. That's how they're described. And you know, there's the families, there's people who are descended from, you know, dragon families in the past, but the difference is that these aware families, as they call them, they pass down knowledge of the bloodlines. You grew up knowing your dragon and your heritage and all the things that you can do. And, you know, it like covers all of history, good and bad, you know, because not all, yeah, a lot of the lessons that, like in dragon families, that people are taught is the avoidance of the abuse of power, you know, like with the legends of Fafnir and stuff like that. That was a lesson, really. And it led to, you know, but a lot of people from the dragon bloodline do hoard things and are greedy, and most of them are in power. And they are not some sort of elven race that, you know, has only one branch left, that being the deVere branch, of course. You see, it's like it's a completely different context. And, you know, a lot of the blood did come from Scythia, so there were royal Scythians in the ancestry records, you know, and you know, a lot of these genealogies that we have that are believed in are considered fake today by most genealogists. Like they'll say, right, "Oh, you can't descend from them." It's like, you know, but for the people in the dragon families, it's real. It's like it's not just a fad or just a name, you know. So,
well, if I may, I think the reason, to me, the more that you study history, especially ancient history, when you look, for example, today, if you go to any of the universities, especially the major ones, like, and you go to get your degree in Egyptology, like your doctorate degree, if you write your thesis on anything other than the fact that, for example, the Great Sphinx in Egypt, if you write that it is more than 6,000 years old, you will not get your degree, because most Egyptologists will hold stringently to the idea that the Sphinx is only 6,000 years old, nothing older. Yet, if you get a geologist out there and go, "Hey, look at the back of the Sphinx. That's water damage, isn't it?" A geologist is going to go. A geologist is going to be like, "Yeah, that's erosion from water damage." You go, "Okay, when was the last time that Giza Plateau had water?" And we can track that geologically. The last time that there was water was 13,000 years ago. So,
at least in those amounts, yeah.
In enough to cause erosion, it was 13,000 years ago. So I find that when you start to study some of the topics in deVere's books and Gardner's books, you are going to run into kind of what Lomelindo said with the dragon families. You have what I would almost consider a truer history in them versus contemporary history, which will state something and hold it to be true, even if it can be argued and proven inaccurate. They will say, well, those Scythian bloodlines didn't exist.
Yeah,
but they can be proven they did.
The general problem, I'll say something really quick here. The general problem with science is not science; it's the humans that are involved with it, because they bring their societal and intercultural and intergroup dynamics into it, and therefore fuck it up. Okay, go on, guys.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Go ahead if you had anything else, Lomelindo.
Yeah, I was going to say. What was I going to say? My brain is like scatterbrain today.
It's totally fine. We get it.
Yeah, it's like there's so much to say on this topic because I have hundreds and hundreds of pages of notes and of questions and answers from various members of various families.
Wow.
But the thing here is that the dragon bloodline is usually not something you talk about. Usually members of the dragon bloodline will say, no, we're not part of any bloodline like that. We're Christians. So so there's that as well. Plus, deVere, what he did was he used the concept of a family tradition, magical family tradition, to legitimize his claims, or tried to, at least.
I'd like to ask a question in regard to that. Is the reason that a lot of the dragon families don't like to speak of it, is it similar to the reason that native people don't like to speak about their religious traditions because they've been fucked over in the past and and eventually they got tired of it? Or is it some other?
It's more of a big mismatch,
Oh, okay.
You can see it in terms of mindset. So, for example, and this is where the whole concept, like, I have, a way to apply it, this way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did we lose you, Lomelindo?
I think he's still there. I could hear him breathing.
Oh, okay. Apologize. I thought we lost you.
No, I lost myself.
It's okay.
Yeah, but yes. So okay. So the difference between mindsets is, like most of the cultural conditioning that we have is not of dragon culture origin at all. It's focused on lack. It's focused on, focused on what you don't want, versus dragons who will instinctively, in many cases, look at what they do want and only focus on that. So, I mean, you could say that's positive thinking or whatnot, but it's a big difference, and it's an important difference with respect to working with energy, because that, where attention goes, energy flows. So,
also, if I could chime in for a second and correct me if you disagree with this idea, Lomelindo. This is my own experience. So years and years ago, when I got into deep magical studies, very, very deep magical studies, and not only that, but also looking into, again, before the internet as we know it today, looking into the topics of things like extraterrestrials. If you go in too deep, I was warned very, very early on by a person who shaped the direction that my life went. If you, and I'd imagine that with the dragon families and some of the other bloodlines, the reason you wouldn't do this, if you come out, it puts you at not necessarily fully at danger, but it does make you a source to be tracked. Over the years, I was warned, do not study too deeply. The several individuals I've met in my lifetime were like, you are too young, because I was, mind you, 13, 14 at the time. And they're like, you are too young for me to share what I know without it having consequences. In the years since I have studied deeper magical things that I don't go into on a YouTube video, it leads to things like phone calls getting recorded when you're talking to individuals. It leads to black vehicles following you in a town where there shouldn't be any vehicle that damn nice. So I'm wondering if Lomelindo, if part of it is the families stay hidden because in this day and age, there is still agencies at work that would be after what they know or what they represent.
Yeah. I mean, there are organizations that oppose people descended from the Watcher bloodlines and stuff like that, where it's actually like a militant terrorist group, operating inside of usually down south. But the reason why it's not really stressed is because we consider our shared humanity. We have done the ruling thing for long enough, right? And it leads to limited results, and I mean, so does capitalism itself. But
Right.
Exactly.
the thing is, it's really none of anyone's business, really. And what it does, if you do say that, it makes you an elitist, and it also it makes you a target because you are identifying yourself as other to those groups who are, who could be anywhere in any chat room. I'm not even sure to the extent of some of these organizations' capabilities.
Myself either. I just know that studying extraterrestrials and studying magical things, I've seen enough, but I was older at that point. And I was like, oh, that's what I was warned about. So, yeah.
There are also stories that, about the very most ancient ancestors going way before, way before civilization. And it was very interesting to me because it was very different. It was the same thing, but not the same thing at all, because it had, like, deVere and Gardner, they have some of the pieces of the puzzle, but they don't put it together in the right way. They forced the
exactly.
So they
right.
But I feel like I was given a glimpse of, like, the bigger picture. The dragon bloodline includes those of the light, those of the dark, kindness, cruel people. I mean, it spans everything, the whole spectrum. So and that's what we own as a descendant of these people. So and we strive to be better than our ancestors, kinder, more helpful to others around us. That was a big thing. We are not gods, we were not angels, we were humans from the beginning. We're not reptilian. Our true shapes are not reptilian in form or whatever. And actually, the whole mythical dragon, if you take it apart, it's actually a composite animal of all of the various royal symbols, like the heraldry and the totem symbol. I mean, it's got the crocodile, it's got the monitor from the Near East, it's got the lion, it's got the eagle, the falcon, all of these different things, and also the spitting cobras of the uraeus of the the snakes, the cobra snakes that were on the pharaoh's crown.
Yeah.
So that's where the fire breathing thing comes from. Also, Sekhmet was another fire breather. Also lioness. So the bull is also another animal that is within this mythical dragon as we know it today. So it is very interesting, and it goes back to the old Scythian traditions of the animal art, where you would have, like, this weird ass, like, some kind of really weird creature that's like a fusion of one thing and another, but what they're doing is they're, like, combining energies together, weaving energies together, so magic isn't something that we practice, it's something that we are. So
absolutely.
So it's not about candles or certain incantations. It's about your intent, and and many teachers have taught this, variations of this teaching, so there were people, dragon kings that enslaved whole peoples and made them work in mines and stuff like that. Like the Semites were one of the ones that were enslaved a lot, it seems. It kept happening over and over. So it's like, yeah, but I mean, it's the main thing is that we are just as fallible as any other human. That is the point. That is like the biggest thing that you have to, just because, being of the dragon bloodline only gives me the potential for various abilities, various behaviors. Whether or not I bring those forth is up to me. It's like something within you that lies dormant, and something awakens, like Tolkien's writings that awaken things inside for me. So especially the Elven stuff, and the Numenorians, and all of these different things. And I was also, interestingly, one of the people from the dragon families that I did encounter said that what Tolkien did was he described various branches of a greater dragon bloodline. For example, there would be the Elven branch in Valinor, the Elven branch in Middle Earth. There would be the Dunedain, right? And then all the various kings of like the Easterlings, all the stuff like that. And so it's not like, you can't say like, oh, it belongs to the light path or dark path. And I mean, what we can do is we can focus on like how to change the world, how to bring it back into balance, because that's what like people of that bloodline would be able to help do. Like they're more like, I would say it's not more of a hierarchy. It's more of like yeah, I mean, the whole concept of power is shifting now. So this is a great opportunity for people to define themselves in relation to that. And, are we going to, indulge in our or more base whims, or are we going to rise above that? And it's like the choice that Galadriel said to Aragorn, that he would rise above all his fathers, or he had the choice to fall into darkness with all that it was with his kin. So like I'm starting to like, there's a lot of so it's interesting. So the dwarves are another dragon bloodline as well. Crafting is a big thing in that bloodline, short stature as well. Also the horse lords, that goes back to the Goths, the Scythians, so that connects together. And Tolkien even had some of the ancestor names of the Rohirrim in Gothic as well.
Yeah, the early forms were in Gothic.
Yeah. So so you can see like parallels and stuff like that. It's not a one-to-one kind of thing where they got, it's more of it's very much, all of this is a mytho-history. I've heard that term a lot, and I kind of like it, because it's acknowledging that those gods in the past were our ancestors, but they were human. They were deified after the fact, after their deaths.
Right.
So that's what we consider as ancestors. And people are like, oh, you're worshiping gods. It's like, no, those are ancestors. So you're a god? It's like, not really. It's like, so, and a lot of these deified ancestors were called Alfar in the Nordic. So yeah, so the bloodline did not begin in Egypt or in Sumer. According to the stories that I've heard, it started in Central Europe, and then went from there and expanded outwards.
And
so Vinca culture.
And
Vinca
they're
culture
much
would be
older.
remnant.
Yeah. Like you said,
Vinca culture is like
everything I've heard, they're much older than, relatively modern history. They go way, 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 way back.
Yeah, this is really an interesting conversation. I do believe that the summation of the comparison points, though, with the Dragon Legacy book the Realm of the Ring Lords book and Tolkien's Legendarium is that they do touch on elements that are similar in all three works. But really, that's where, I mean, after the discussion tonight, it seems like that's where it ends. And I think that maybe part of it is that, like, and they weren't just trying to only use Tolkien for their legitimization of, like, whatever they were trying to talk about. I think they were also trying to tie in, like we talked about earlier, with the Jesus line and the, you know, the this
actually,
and that.
Marcus Marcus, in his thesis there around page 288, actually, now I don't agree with everything Marcus says, but like he got my mental state completely and Luthien's completely wrong. But I think in this particular passage that he talks about, it is correct, because what he's basically saying in a few sentences is that it seemed to him that deVere and Gardner were attempting to basically ride Tolkien's fame and popularity to get more, you know, approbation for their books. So, and probably also more sales, you know, so.
And I think that's why they tried also tying it to the Jesus bloodline, because if you tie it to something so controversial, then everyone's going to be talking about it and everyone's going to buy your book just to see what you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can kind of do shoddy historical work, but it'll still sell a book.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, and like Lomelindo said, I think that they took pieces, and it ties to Tolkien's work as well, but not his is much purer. But I think they heard pieces of a story and went, we know what this wants, or this is how it fits into what Tolkien wrote. And it's like, no, you misinterpreted everything. You can't stick a square block into a round hole just because they're the same color.
Yeah, he claims that, you know, the whole LOTR narrative is a Grail quest, but it really isn't. You know, it has none of the.
It's a history. No.
Yeah,
it's more than that different. To me.
And the whole wasteland equals Mordor. That's like, you know, that's not proof, you know.
Well, and the selections that the selections that I read of both books, I couldn't read all of them because I got pissed off, especially in deVere's book, because I would have disagreed with him simply personality wise, and I would have given him 10 seconds to get out of my space, or I'm going to draw my sidearm and shoot him in the head. You know, but it
tell us how you really feel, Dave.
Yeah. It seems to me that a lot of their MO in, you know, each author. Now, Gardner is easier for me to handle because he sounds more academic, even if he's using, you know, deVere's material. Ultimately, he's easier for me to handle because he doesn't, you know, it's not the Tinker Kings are oppressing me. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I got a lot of people oppressing me. Deal with it, dude. It's called life, you know?
Yeah, that's the other thing. The whole Tinker King thing, that is completely wrong, because it's those people are from dragon lineages, you know. So it's not that he's the one in the minority, because he's the one from a minor noble house. So he's trying to bolster his own stuff, and also say that he's the actual claimant for the throne of England.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
He was associated with the fake called Michael of Albany, who was a so-called steward who was trying to get the kingship back in Scotland. That's who deVere and Gardner were associating with.
Right, you know, which was the whole it's basically, if you go to Scotland, and I have friends, if you say that you have Scottish ancestry, all of my Scottish friends are like, oh, automatically they hear it so often. They're like, oh, is it through Mary, Queen of Scots? And it's like, no, it's not. And they're like, oh, okay. Because everybody who thinks they have Scottish or Irish or, UK ancestry automatically seems to tie it right to that, which is exactly what deVere was doing, is that, well, the House of, Stuart, the House of Scots never ended. And it's like, yeah.
Anyway, just to finish the last sentence I was going to say on their mode of operation, it seems like it operates primarily, that both authors operate primarily out of confirmation bias. So if you have a pre-existing idea, you can basically shoehorn anything into it, and there you are,
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually had the opportunity to meet deVere in a chat. And he was such an asshole. Oh my god!
Oh my god!
He was yelling at everyone. He was threatening people that, I'm gonna send the Hell's Angels after you. He threatened me. I was just like, what the fuck? Seriously, really? Yeah. So I have met him more closely than a lot of people, and the view wasn't very good.
Wow. And thereby probably the whole lesson about tonight, which, the original premise that I was thinking about was how these two works, if they did in fact relate to Tolkien at all, and what our role as Tia Eldelieva is with this. And, I think it really comes down to two things. One is that just because books use the same elements in order to retell a story does not mean that it's the same story.
Precisely.
Okay. That's Absolutely. The first thing. I'm not saying that we should never read other stories. Okay. That's not where I'm going with that. But I think on the lens of a spiritual path, the actual question is, Lomelindo totally said it perfectly. Do we stay in our base natures, or do we rise above them? And that goes for not only people in a dragon bloodline, but that goes for every human alive. Okay. So whether we think we have an elven soul, whether we think we have elven bloodline, and by the way, I think that these things are legitimate as far as exploration. Knowing who you are is a really good thing. But more important than that is how you can face your, like, when it's your time to go, do you have utter confidence that you did the very best you could, and the energies of love and light and nature, okay, and balance, as you guys talk about, how did we practice that? And all of us do our very best with where we are. We're all very diverse. And so what I think I was understanding, Lomelindo, from actual dragon like families that, have this energy, to me, it sounds like it's a magnification of things, whether it's used for good or evil can be really, like that's a gift and a curse, right?
Right. Yeah. With respect to dragon, it's, they are both light and dark. So say, like, with, an example with ancient Egypt, you have Ra defeating Apophis. This is nothing more than basically a family conflict, in that lens. Mm. So yeah, like, okay. It's the dragon, as a bloodline have, pretty much dominated everything, and I've actually tried to keep people down. So that is a thing that has been going on. Like, a lot of the knowledge that people like want, they will not be able to handle. So it's more of something like along those lines. But they were perfectly, willing to open up to me, to answer my questions, to answer other people's questions too, not just me. There was a lot of from the deVere group who were interacting with those people. So
interesting.
But the thing is,
I mean, to me, it just seems like it's a magnification of whatever you are at your core. if you have that bloodline, meaning that like it seems like it's just a magnifying energy. So if it's good, you can magnify that. But if it's not so good, you could magnify that pretty easily.
Right.
Like in other words, it seems like the energy of the line, because it's magical, it magnifies and creates things even out of your control. Like if you're, if you haven't been, I guess, schooled in how to deal with this energy, it's kind of like giving a Ferrari to a kindergartner. They have to like kind of get, maybe
Exactly.
we should start off with a tricycle first, and then train up towards the Ferrari kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, people, when they look back in history, they tend to remember the bad things. So, of course, people of this bloodline did very bad things, but interestingly, Hitler wasn't one of them. So,
meaning he wasn't of the line, or he didn't do bad things?
No, he was not a blood. He was not.
He did bad things, but he was not a dragon blood. Some have tried to tie him to it, but he was not.
Oh,
yeah, no.
Yeah.
So you have,
I think some of his handlers might have been.
As the bloodline has been throughout history, like, we've done enough of the power over ruling over people, right? What the human race needs now, dragon or not, because I think there are so many descendants out there that don't know their heritage. Millions of people, and not just a couple of thousand, like deVere claimed. And this will actually, be there'll be like a synchronization. So basically, what is going on here is we have a consciousness, a subjective collective consciousness that we tap into. So yes, we do. It is like, if you're good, you're like Buddha, and if you're bad, you're like Genghis Khan, So that is a thing that is like, it's like a very, like a double-edged sword kind of feeling, where you have to like be in balance. Balance is the key to the whole thing. That's basically like the underpinnings of the whole, what I could tell of their worldview. So
I would also, if I could add that, like Lomelindo said, being of the bloodline doesn't automatically. I wanted to kind of clarify something, because Calantierniel, you said that it amplifies. I would say yes and no. It would, how to put it, the way I want to phrase it is, being of the bloodline, you end up with individuals who are predispositioned genetically to be better at math. But they also could end up being a janitor, and they never got good at math because no one put it in front of them. There's architects where you see these guys and they're like, well, they're just genetically predispositioned to be an architect. It doesn't make them necessarily better. It gives them the potential if they address that. They're not better than other architects. They have a slight advantage to see a building in a way they don't. It's not necessarily more powerful. It's just a slight genetic potential to be something.
I definitely agree with what you said there. And, it's the predisposition. You have to actually tap into what's within you in order to activate something like that. But
right. Yeah. That's kind of what I wanted to touch, is that they're not automatically like, hey, look, I'm the greatest architect.
Have talents that other bloodlines don't. So, I mean, yes, I could see how it could be special to know that you have this, this energy, and everybody that is discovering their genetic heritage needs to know who they are. I totally understand that. But at the same time, I believe that it's really important to know that all bloodlines have gifts, and all bloodlines have, you know, like things that we are learning from. And so no matter what you chose as a human, like when you came in and incarnated and chose your family, because at some level, at some soul level, I believe that we do choose everything that we're experiencing. We have to still rise to that highest level of expression, no matter what it is that we are dealing with.
Can I say something?
Okay, whatever we jumped into the pool with.
Calenturnio, Lomelindo had something he.
I'm trying to
talk. I apologize.
Oh man. Oh yes. Yes, I agree totally with what you guys are saying. The dragon bloodline, being of that blood, doesn't make you any better than anyone else. There's people of the bloodline who have done awful things, and there's people who are, you know, descended from peasants who, you know, are like the most benevolent people, right? So
yeah.
So yeah, it makes us different. It doesn't make us better.
Absolutely.
So, and it doesn't make us, although we do like to hang on to our power, and, you know, the whole divine right to rule idea came out of all of this as well. So, but that's another lesson though. Like, I was told that Tolkien's writings are sourced from the old stories, right? All of the dragon stories that are not in the popular historical books that you would find like in a university or something. But it doesn't make it like a one-for-one kind of relation either. So
correct, yeah.
So I wanted to ask something in relation to what you just said. Can a person in a dragon bloodline, can they recognize if another person is or is not in a dragon bloodline?
Usually, yes, you can feel it, and you can see in the eyes as well. It's a presence in the eyes, like a piercing sight kind of thing.
I would agree with that, and I would take it also one step further, that you can also tell if that person is, to use the term, awakened or aware or not. Like, you can look at someone and be like, that person's of the bloodline, but they are oblivious to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yes.
There
are.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I blanked out again. Sorry.
But that's okay.
But yeah, so it's definitely, like I said, you will know. But like I said, I've seen people where it's like they have no idea what they are, and you leave it at that because they may not be able to handle the knowledge or accept it. So you just leave it.
Right. It's like you know, they call it an imprint, which is a term that is used. It's a genetic imprint, you know, as well, but it's not just physical. So it's kind of multidimensional, and that's something genetics has not yet discovered. So so right now you can't say, like, you can't tell the difference, you know, with blood work.
Like science, it doesn't know how yet.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked was out of personal interest, because being on the autism spectrum, I can usually recognize if another person is or is not. I call it Dratus out of the Battlestar Galactica mythos, because unlike Gaydar, you know, where they can recognize another, it's
that's
Dratus.
A talent, though.
Yeah. Which is the Cylon radar, basically, is what that is. And I use Cylon as a metaphor for what autistic people will eventually become, in the sense of incipient speciation. So, you know.
I would also add something to what Lomelindo said earlier about the conscious collective memory. There has actually been research done on the belief that that humans have a collective genetic memory that can be accessed and updated on a day-to-day basis. There was a study done where they took like 100 participants at a university in, I want to say it was like London, and they showed them a picture that was comprised of like 100 faces. And so they took this group and they had them point out how many faces they could identify. And I think it was something like, I don't remember, like 30, they were able to see 30% of the faces. Just for, it's been a while since I read the actual thing, but they were able to identify 35% of the faces that composed this picture. Then they took a separate group of 100 people down in Australia at a university and showed them the picture, the exact same picture that they had shown the other group. But in this group, they pointed out all of the different faces that were in the that comprised this picture. They went back to London, took a separate group of 100 people who had never been involved in the previous two studies, showed them the picture, and that group of individuals was able to recognize like 58% of the faces that composed the picture. And the only conclusion they could determine was, and they did this numerous times, but the only thing they could determine was that there was a collective consciousness that, because two groups had seen this, they were accessing memory they didn't recognize existed. It's also been documented with creations of like 3 different inventors around the world going to a patent office on the exact same damn day to submit a patent for the exact same item that they'd been working on, but no 3 of these inventors had known each other.
Okay,
So
can
that
I
happens all
just
the time.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I want to just jump in here. The whole concept of collective consciousness is one that is held by dragon families, but with the dragon, it's a subset of that consciousness, what the dragon consciousness would be, right?
Right.
It's not easily
totally makes sense.
accessible. It's like on 2 different energy levels, and I think
No.
dragon would be a little bit higher, not too much higher, but just a little bit higher.
And I was just pointing to the general concept of a collective consciousness, not going into a specific branch, which would access maybe something entirely different. But yes,
I did write a paper in 2007 regarding the bloodline. I think I'm going to circulate it to you guys because it has stuff on the etymology of dragon. But one thing I wanted to say is that, instead of having power over, I think as all humans, we should have power with one another. So we're not, and
power
like people
to guide rather than rule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's power within, but also used properly to not harm others.
Well,
right.
and that's where I said
people
serves
need to
as a
find
guide
their own
rather
power
than
right now.
Rather than let me lead you. In a sense, it's let me work with you and guide you on a way of being rather than let me be your overlord and dictator.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when when Dave and I decided to begin Tia Aldalieva, the one thing that I never really wanted, and I can, I think that Dave can vouch for me like the whole time, is I never wanted to be the leader of this, that I always wanted it to be where all of us that were equal path followers, okay, so I'm a co-founder, but that doesn't make me a high priestess and over other people or, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and it happened right away too. The people started appearing that wanted to get like titles and knowledge poured into their heads and shit.
Yes, they wanted me to impart to them that they would be the high priestess of Elven knowledge or something, and I'm like, I can't even do that, right? Like, how do you want this to work? And then they would be like, well, you got to do this, and I'm like, listen, and then I would just send them a copy of the Legendarium and like study it. And then they would do it the hard way.
Usually.
Bye. See you later. By the way, those people never came back. I don't think that they ever became, high priestess of any Elven thing. And that's not why we exist. We are not existing for, the embellishment of our identities and for the, the holding over of other people like that don't understand elves. That's not why we're here. We get something from the materials that deeply activates us, as Lomelindo talked about, as Dave talked about, and as Dakyndre talks about. All of us feel a pull to the material and particularly to Tolkien. And I'm not saying that I never felt the pull when I was reading the Dragon Legacy or the Realm of the Ring Lords. Like, it didn't pull me the same way. But that's legit. Like, if other people want to do that, that's totally fine. What we won't look into is like people claiming that like theirs is the right one and we're the wrong one, or you know what I mean? Like, just weird, identity politics within spirituality. It's like retarded. Okay.
These are all mytho-histories.
Yes, exactly. And the reason that I connect with the Tolkien material is enough for me. Like, and it's enough for everybody that joins this path. It's enough. We don't have to prove that it's better than the Bible or better than, the Dragon Legacy or anything.
If it wasn't attractive to them, they simply would go to something else. I mean,
and I invite them to do so.
And I would take it to one step of, you said, we don't have to prove it's better than the Bible. We don't have to prove this. I use this argument because I've debated with many pastors and, high-level clergy over the years with various topics. But one thing I use is to point it simply. If I'm trying to get to New York, I can take a plane. I can take a boat. I can, go to California, take a train. I can drive. There are 100 different ways I can get to New York. I'm only going to take the way that resonates best with me. It doesn't mean that my way is better. It's just one more way of getting to New York.
Right.
And I think a lot of religions, the problem with a lot of religions and spiritualities is they start injecting their own ego and the need for superiority. I have the true path to New York. Yours is bogus. No.
Well, and I'm finding that a lot of those people that brag about their path being the one to New York, they're not even in New York. You know what I'm saying? Like,
they sent me a field in the middle of Nebraska, God damn it.
So I wanted to point out, it's not that the Elven path is better than the Bible or better than the Quran. It's simply another path to the same destination.
And it resonates with those who resonate with it. And if that's you, perfect.
Oh, I have to tie it back to Tolkien. I just wanted to mention this. He said, what did he say? My brain is not good. And
was it in his letters by chance?
I think so. Yeah, I think I was going to mention something about that.
Okay. And you know what? Lomelindo, if you remember later and we end the stream, you can totally add it in the comments afterward too. Like if it comes to you.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot. Bless your heart.
Sometimes my brain just it just goes blank.
I understand. Yeah.
It's annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we know that you have like a ton of knowledge too. So, going through your filing cabinets might be really monumental.
Well, no, it might actually, I'm thinking it might actually be a peculiarity of his neural processing, because I have problem remembering names. I'll blank out names, so I'll just make something up like Flippy Floppy Floopy. Yeah, that's who it was, yo.
I got it. I remember, right, when Tolkien says in the letters that elves are like something to the effect of like the higher level of human.
Yeah, right? The humane raised to a higher level than is actually seen in men. Yeah, that's it.
Right.
Yes. We talked about that in the difference in elves and fairies video.
Yes,
too.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah. So it's not better. Yeah. It's just different.
It's different, but I also believe that like we still, even as an individual human, we tend to think that being human is lesser, or we want to be something else, or all of these things, and truly actually being a human is a privilege in a way. We have tremendous magic because we are in a sense 3D but joined with all the other planes at one time, and we have free will, and that's not possible in every realm. So that's an incredible gift, but it's an incredible responsibility too. And what I want to say is that it is my wish, regardless of whether you are following the Elven path or whether you are following something that resonates with you, that you find that place within you that elevates you, okay, and brings you to your best expression, that's balanced, that's loving, that's healing, and be contributing toward the earth, the planet,
right, and
in your own way.
If I could just real quick, I wanted to address in the comments what Pink Pearl Fairy was saying about, she says, I understand what you are saying, but when you grow up in a strict home/church, they believe that any other faith is wrong and that you are misled / going to hell for believing it. When I started exploring other paths, I literally thought I was going to hell and had blinding headaches for a year because of the fear of change. I wanted to touch on that because from my own background, I was raised in a very strict Christian home. We did not listen to any music. I didn't know other styles of music really existed other than Christian, classical, and oldies, because that was all we were allowed to listen to. We wore no shirts with logos that weren't Christian or Christian themed. So I completely understand. The biggest thing about that is that they use the headaches, the fear, all of that is used as, that's almost a psychological brainwashing. It would be like keeping a kid in a dark room and telling them that if they go out into the sunlight, that it's going to set them on fire. Most of the Christian leaders know of other paths. All of the ones I've talked to have all researched them. They read these books. They read these topics. They can converse with them just as well as I am with you. And they have conversed with me on these topics. What they choose to do is blatantly ignore the other information and then stand up in front of church every Sunday and tell you you're going to hell, because to do anything else would be to relinquish control over you. So it's not that they don't know these other things exist. they choose to ignore them for the context of their construct.
Which
And that's
by
why
their ignoring, that it totally then tells you that it's not from a place of truth and source. It's actually created.
It's correct. If you look at the original, when you go way, way back into the original concepts of what Christianity was in the Roman, in the Gnostic period, in the Essene period, it is an entirely different barrel of monkeys than what modern Christianity is.
Oh, absolutely.
The Essenes and the original Christians would have been much more in line with this knowledge than what it is today and what they've created.
Yeah. And I mean, actually, I really do believe in many ways that the churchianity that happens today is misnamed Christianity, because I think that the Christ consciousness energy is a beautiful, loving energy.
Well, absolutely.
The church made it tainted, and and this is, I'm not saying all churches are bad or tainted. That's not where I'm going, because there are churches full of love. Okay, and I think that if it works for you, you should totally do that. Okay, but where I'm going with that is that there are a lot of things that don't align to me with the concept of what the Christ energy, when I encounter that energy, when it comes to me. When people ask me if I'm Christian, I can't really answer and tell them, because I'm like, well, what's your definition of Christian? If it means, do I go to your church? No. But if it means, do I interact with the Christ consciousness? Yes, I have.
I'd like to speak on that as someone who comes out more of an outsider, but because of that, I have a different spin. What you're just talking about. It's like taking Islam as a religion. Now you have your ISIS idiots, that everybody thinks of as Islam. You also have your Sufis. It's the same religion, but it's expressed very differently.
Yes, the mystical sides of every religion are pretty much in line
exactly.
Well, and if you look at
being the
if you to go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. It's quick, you guys. Go ahead, Lomelindo.
Go ahead.
What I was going to say was, if you look at a quote from the Bible, if you go with the idea that it is correct, it was never intended in the Bible, from Jesus's own words of what's written in the Bible, supposedly attributed directly to his speech, that he was the only one who could walk on water, that he was the only one who could raise the dead, or the only one who could change water to wine. Because in one of the 4 Gospels, he very blatantly says, the things I do, you can do as well, and greater. So in their own book, Jesus is basically saying, dude, you can do the same crap I'm doing and even better than what I can do. But they ignore that part and use it for subservience to be like, no, you can only, you can't do anything without, submitting yourself. That was never his message.
Permission from the priest of that church, which is
that
ridiculous.
was never Jesus's original message. So, and when you study the other religions, as I've studied Buddhism and Shintoism and all of the others, they basically have the same message. It's more or less this exact same concept, core identity.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I guess that's even more proof that all paths really do lead to the one source. And, well, we're just another path.
Exactly.
It's an interconnected web, and everyone on that web has a different perspective, and it goes into infinity. So like what I think of like Dragon Bloodline versus that. I mean, it's 2 different things. It's like there's layers of meaning. It's like it seems that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
It's just that most modern people don't like layers of meaning. They like things to be simple, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
There isn't
that's
just
really
one
getting dumbed
answer.
down these days.
But yeah.
Yeah. Pink Pearl Fairy did say, yes, however, it's based on Jesus being the only way to heaven, and this is a major point of the Christian faith. Okay. Yes, but
That
Jesus
was most
can be like, you could have a relationship with Jesus and not have to go to their church that's my whole thing. And who's to say that the Christian heaven is the one you want to go to?
well, and a lot of that was rewritten. You have to admit that a lot of what was translated was not what was originally in most of the manuscripts.
Yeah.
There's also the borrowing from Near Eastern other texts as well, such as like with the Watcher Stories of the Dragon Ancestors, Book of Watchers, was found in the Dead Sea, Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, absolutely. But I think we've pretty much covered the.
I think we have too. Do we have any comments that we want to leave? Dave, do you want to go first, or?
Well, I would just be since they, we've already gone through the whole deVere source material. I actually created a thing where I went through it point by point. I could just post that in the chat because it's not really
okay. Well, actually, wait until the stream ends and post it in the comments below, because that's a different place, and that will be more readily available for people. And that'd be great.
What I did was to show how it seems to me as a Legendarium person when I read deVere's just the first paragraph in his chapter 14, his Tolkien chapter, about how well obviously the plural of Ainur and the singular Ainu are clearly derived from the Sumerian father of the gods, Ainu and the Anunnaki, and my first. My first note to that: how is this clear? All we can truthfully say with regard to any Sumerian sources used by JRT in the absence of direct evidence is that the relationship is undefined. But apparently, ordinary humans, which some other artistic people refer to as neurotypical, simply can't abide the condition of uncertainty, so they just make shit up to make any source data fit their preconceived ideas. That's that's an idea of my notes, but and that's just one tiny paragraph of 3 sentences. So there's no way I could have gone through that whole book. I would have gone berserk.
Yeah, I tried to do that too.
Okay, I'm not autistic, and I couldn't do it either. Yeah. or Asperger's or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was really difficult to read it because it's so like. It just like everything within me just rebelled against the interpretation and the context. It was
well, and the expressed arrogance in that, well, obviously this is true. You could see that, and if you disagree with me, you're a fucking idiot. It's basically what he was. That's how he was presented.
Yeah, that's called being a bully, right?
He also regarded the dragon as being a sort of an Ubermensch, similar to like the master race, right?
Yeah, like Nazi ideology. Yeah, that's what a lot of it reminded me of. Well, I thought I was watching a program on the Third Reich and their belief systems. Seriously, I get because I'm a World War II fan, so I watch a lot of that stuff because my dad wasn't in the military, but he was what would now be called a military contractor. So he was sent in a lot of places because he was a hydraulics technician. So he was behind the lines at the siege of Stalingrad. He was at a lot of different places. And, when I was interested in his life. So, I watched what went on in World War II in different theaters of battle. And, and then, of course, Hitler was a big part of that, of kicking the whole thing off. So, I watch, and a lot of the deVere mode of expression resembled a lot of the Nazi-esque stuff. Even some of the what I suppose they would call arcana, or what some people might call occult sources. I mean, there was some overlap there, and at least if there wasn't data overlap, there was attitudinal overlap, and I'm like, wow, this dude was a bit fucked up,
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
Well, and even if we can't say that it was directly correlated with that, what we do know, though, is that it is written down that Tolkien was very against the Nazi regime.
Oh yeah, one of the
so therefore that could be a very different, like that's a definite difference. And so if the if deVere or deVere's followers like are doing Nazi-istic type of behaviors, we could literally say right there it cannot like be connected to Tolkien, because Tolkien himself.
Well, that's actually in one of his letters directly. Some official in Nazi Germany at the time had asked if he had Aryan ancestry, basically. Although they used a different German word, it was something like Arisch or something. I can't pronounce it exactly, but anyway, that's what they wanted to know. They wanted to know his ancestry, basically, and he comes up with a great comeback to it. I can only remember parts of it, but it's in letters, so
it's in the letters of JRR Tolkien. And on that note, for all of the people watching, and you guys came in on the replay, we will have ways for you to, if you are a patron member or and just write to us if you're curious. I will drop my Addy or contact way in the comments and also in the live chat, or you guys can reach me on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever other way. But we have electronic copies for the members because it's part of our membership. So if you are curious about these two works and how they will relate to Tolkien's material for yourself, because we absolutely totally support doing your own research, just make sure you guys get a hold of me and we'll make sure you get hooked up. Okay. And we're going to probably be ending here fairly soon.
Yeah, we are going.
I got all the comments, I think, caught up. Dakyndre, did you want to say anything before we wrap up?
No, I think I covered it. I appreciate Lomelindo being here today. It was very informative and helpful, and I hope people enjoy the replay.
Yeah, Merlin has already said very fun hanging out with all of you tonight, and very informative as always.
I have one, but my last comment is more of a joke. And it's actually.
Do you want to save it before Ian says goodbye?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Not Ian. Go ahead.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So the whole dragon thing, like trying to become a dragon or whatnot, is really not the point,
not the point
of any of it, because what deVere did is he had like a cult, he had young red-haired women that he would violate. So yeah.
Is that why he has this thing about red hair and green eyes being the superior thing? Because it's really his taste in women. Wow,
it's basically
like
his version of blonde hair, blue eyes. It's the blonde hair, blue eyes thing again, except it's green eyes and red hair.
So that was his. So what you're saying is then that was his personal paraphilia, basically.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, he was a interesting guy. I mean, he was a raging alcoholic too. I mean, he was very abusive.
That is documented. Yeah.
Yeah, and he actually died in 2019, I believe, under very shady circumstances.
Weird. Very strange.
Everything was in disarray, trashed. Like, I don't know if he did it or someone else did, but yeah.
Well, and then there was a mysterious death of the assistant of his book, Tracy Twyman, too, because she was doing research in other areas where I think she was getting into some people that were doing some really bad stuff, and she outed them, and she even said, they're after me and I probably will die. And then she died, and she was very young.
That's not what I mean by dragon bloodline.
No.
Those people
No. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about her other studies in which she was discovering some, pretty shady stuff and had evidence against the shady stuff, and they didn't like it. So, bless her heart wherever she is. I'm sure that she's on the other side, like probably trying to lead other people to, do the exposure. So, hey guys, we're gonna get going tonight. Thank you again for coming. Thank you for all of you who are watching the replay. And again, if you are interested in, getting the texts that, if they're hard to find or something is happening, consider either being a member or something like that. We can hook you up. Okay. We want everybody to be educated on this matter and to have the information that it is at the source material, not just our opinions, okay, not just our interpretations, although I would say that this panel is very, very informed, okay? But we want you to be able to make your own decisions, and that's the reason we came forward and made this video. We really wanted to be at a service for the community so that people could get the right information, make the right choices. And no matter what, I really do believe that it's really about elevating whoever we are. And that means really knowing who we are and not trying to be somebody else. Like as Lomelindo was talking about, quote, being trying to be dragon, that's ridiculous, right?
No, yeah. The important
you
thing
either are or you're not. That's like a lion wanting to be a sheep, or you know what I mean? Like you just are who you are. And we want to encourage everybody to be who you are at your true level. And when you do that, you elevate the love and the light energy and your service on the planet in the light that you are. That's what we're about. And so I just wanted to say that. Looks like Pink Pearl Fairy says, I'm sorry, I have a call. I have to go. It's been interesting, and to have a great evening. And Namadier. So we're gonna also sign off soon. Go ahead, Dave.
I gotta do the setup for my final joke. This is,
okay.
This is from one of my favorite comedies, Seinfeld, and in this little scene that I'm going to post it, which doesn't exist on YouTube anymore, but it was captured by the Wayback Machine, so you can view it there. Anyway, what it is there's these two, an old husband and an older wife, and they're looking at Kramer's painting. And the dude is like me, he looks at it, he doesn't like the painting at all, much like I don't like deVere's work at all. But the woman is exactly the opposite. Oh, he's a man-child crying out for love, an innocent orphan in the postmodern world. And the dude said, I see a parasite. A sexually depraved miscreant only out to satisfy his basest and most immediate urges. And it goes on from there.
Oh my goodness. So in other words, you're talking about, it's funny, but you're talking about the viewpoints of, it all matters about our filters and our lenses. And the cleaner they can be, the more accurate we will navigate spirituality.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we try. And what I love about Tolkien, I really do believe, when I heard one of you guys say that Tolkien was cleaner than the other sources. Oh yeah, I absolutely totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And maybe that is also part of what happens with why I myself feel pulled, because it just might be a vibrational, energetic match, and nothing else really matters. If you think about it, it's all the details and all of the stuff. I mean, it's really about, elevating our vibration and really bringing that up to a level of, beauty and just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't even have the rest of the words for that. So Does anybody else want to say anything before I sign off?
No, I think I've
Oh,
said
let
my
me
piece.
double check in the private chat and make sure that we got. Oh, okay. It looks like Dave wants to add this particular.
That's the whole point of my joke. That you have to see the video to get to really get the joke.
Well, we're gonna copy it.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry, I didn't switch it over. Oh my gosh. Oh, Nimue says this has been a great video. Thank you. Namaste and Namadie. That's awesome. Thank you, Nimue. Okay, so I'm having trouble connecting. Please check your internet connection. Uh-oh. Okay.
It may just be a few things with the Wayback Machine. If you refresh, it works on Firefox and it works on the Chrome browsers. If
okay,
you have,
well, it's okay.
If you have something that's a little, what it's going to do, it's going to load basically its own player within the Wayback Machine site. So if you have,
see. Okay. And I may, if I can't get it to work here in the live stream, I'll put it in the comments for everybody to see afterward. Right. So sorry, you guys. I was trying to help.
All right.
So Vere says bye. Thank you very much for everything. I'll be listening to the replay. Yeah. So she had to leave in order to get a phone call, and Pink Pearl Fairy just left to go get a phone call. So hey, I guess that it's about time to wrap it up. Oh, it's 6:33 here in Pacific time. So Namadie, Laita, many blessings to all of you. This is Dakyndre Niel, Dave Woosley, Dakyndre, and Lomelindo signing off. You guys all have a good evening, and all of you watching the replay, many blessings to all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Good evening and good night.